believe in a literal place called a place of torment for the wicked. And as I stated, Francis Chan's book, Erasing Hell, does a really good job of providing the resources for this statement. The word, and Rob Bell points this out, for death or the grave, or what is sometimes translated hell in the King James, I looked that up, is Sheol, and it's a dark, murky place people go when they die, is what he says. Like in Psalm 18, where it's translated grave. And then he says there's also a realm of the dead, which is used in Psalm 16. And so basically he's saying there's really no concrete definition for a place called hell in the Old Testament. Well, that's because of what Sheol really is. I looked up this information in Zodhiates, Greek definitions, or Hebrew definitions, and it says that Sheol, or the grave, is the place of the wicked. This is Psalm 9:17, 31:17. Ezekiel pictured it as a place of the uncircumcised, which often meant the unsaved or the heathen. That's in Ezekiel 31:15, 32:21, and 27. Israel's search for more wicked and apostasy took them to the depths of Sheol, which is Isaiah 57:9. On the other hand, the righteous were not made for the grave or Sheol. It's not their proper abode. They were not left in the grave or Sheol, which is Psalm 16:10, but were rescued from that place, which is Psalm 49:15. And we're going to get into that in detail, what that means. Adulterers and fornicators were metaphorically described as in the lower parts of Sheol or the grave, which suggests there might be different levels. That's in Proverbs 9:18. Sheol and Abaddon, or destruction, are as open to the eyes of God as are the hearts and thoughts of mankind. There is nothing mysterious about them to him, and that's Proverbs 15:11. His other reference of Psalm 16:10 as the realm of the dead is also Sheol in the Hebrew. Interestingly, this is a prophetic reference to the Lord's resurrection, which gives us an important clue as to where the dead went before the Lord was raised from the dead. And the story that he told in Luke 16:19-21 gives us a lot of clues, which we're going to examine. But basically, Sheol was the realm or place of the dead, both the righteous and the unrighteous. And I'm going to explain the difference, like how could the righteous be where the unrighteous were. And so to do that, we're going to go to Luke 16:19-31. Because we have so much to cover, I'm not going to read the story, I'm going to basically summarize it. There were two men. One was a rich man and one was a beggar named Lazarus. And the beggar and the rich man both died. And I guess the beggar ate the crumbs at the rich man's table. So there was a relationship or a knowing of who was who. After death, the beggar goes to Abraham's bosom, and the rich man is tormented in, they say hell, but that's how it's translated in English, but it's basically Hades, the Greek word, which is the Greek equivalent to the Hebrew word Sheol. Abraham's bosom was a very well-known reference to, Jewish reference to paradise, or the place of the righteous after death. And as seen in the story, you have the rich man that's in the tormented place, and there's flames. He's thirsty. He wants Abraham to send the beggar over to touch his tongue with water, showing that he still views the beggar as of less value. And then there's this chasm in between, which no man could cross, and there's Abraham's bosom, which the beggar is there. He's enjoying the comforts of that place. And whenever he asks Abraham, send the beggar to quench my thirst, Abraham says, I can't do that. No one can cross this great, divide between the two places. So then he begs Abraham to send the beggar back to his relatives to tell him about the torment, so that they will not end up in the same place. And this really was a story that Jesus used very real places and elements to teach a lesson, and he did that quite a bit, and I'll give an example in a second. But basically Abraham was saying, if the Jewish people that are alive do not believe Moses or the prophets, they won't believe a man that has been raised from the dead. And so it was Jesus, and it was targeting the religious leaders that Even if a man is raised from the dead, they are not going to believe his message. And that happened exactly. I mean, he raised Lazarus from the dead, and it just made the religious leaders want to kill him all the more. And then when he was raised from the dead, they didn't believe then as well. So there's a definite lesson to be learned, and that's why he shares the story. But Rob Bell relegates his story as a story that reveals that, quote, Jesus brings a social revolution, and to reject this new social order is to reject Jesus. Now, in a way, he's right. Jesus did bring in a new social order, but it was the kingdom. And the gospel of the kingdom is the king is returning, and with him, according to Matthew 16, he's going to bring his rewards. And so if you don't know him, the reward will be punishment. If you know him, the reward will be everlasting life. And so you can't relegate this to just a story. He's using real realities. He then says that the torments the rich man is feeling is profound torment because he's living with the realities and not properly dying the kind of death that actually leads a person to the only kind of life that's worth living. No, the rich man does not have the concept that he is being a jerk, because if he did, he wouldn't want the beggar to still serve him. He's not tormented because of his conscience. He's not tormented because he's not living the life that God designed. He's tormented because he's in a literal place of torment. He also says that the chasm, the divide in between them was the divide in his heart. Again, that's not the case. Jesus was revealing a very real place. And here's something that Francis Chan wrote that just blew me away. He said that the Lord was a revolutionary, and he had no problem living against or preaching against man's tradition, man's beliefs that were contrary to the Word of God. It didn't bother him at all. He was constantly confronting that, actually. So he was raised in a culture that had very real ideas of hell and a place of torment for the wicked. For him to not preach against it, and to even use it in his stories, means that he was in agreement with the Jewish thought that there is a place of torment for the wicked. If it was not true, he would have had no problem at all preaching against it. In fact, the Sadducees, who don't even believe in a resurrection or any of that, he went against their error. In fact, he said, you're in error because you deny the power as well. So you gotta have power and word. But anyway, so the fact that the Lord did not outright go against the teaching of hell means that he was in agreement with it. When Jesus was on the cross, in Luke 23:43, he told the thief that he would be with him in paradise that day. If it was just a story, I doubt the Lord would have told him that. He was saying, you're going to be with me in a very real place called paradise. So what exactly is paradise? This, again, is often referred to as Abraham's bosom, and it's a Persian word that means garden. In Revelation 2:7, it states the tree of life is in the midst of the paradise of God. So now the paradise is in heaven.